Yo, what up? How's it going? And welcome back for another video. Today's video, we're going to be doing a patch 10.1 notes rundown. So in this video, we're going to be aiming this at solo queue and pro play content, since pro play is going to be starting up in the East next week and in the West in a couple weeks. So we're going to be aiming that content at both of these. So let's just get right into it. Okay, we have Sett right here. We're not going to talk too much about Sett. If you want to know about Sett, you can click on his abilities and on the right website and learn all about him. But he's going to be a juggernaut, going to be mainly played in the top lane, can have some mid lane into some certain matchups, but that'll be kind of will need some testing to see where he fits into the mid lane meta. But it definitely could be a mid laner, but he is a juggernaut class, kind of like Darius, Garen, and Mordekaiser. But he can fit into a solo lane on either lane, but mid lane would kind of depend on the matchup. People are going to try to play him in jungle, but I really don't think he's a jungler just based off of his kit. Doesn't make a lot of sense. If he's a level 6 jungler, that would be what he is. But just opposing to other level 6 junglers doesn't really fit it. So most likely just going to be a solo laner, primarily into the top lane. If you'd like to know more about Sett, then you can just learn about his abilities on his own champion spotlight rather than on this video. All right, Aphelios is getting a slight nerf, so Aphelios is getting a 5% or 5 movement speed nerf, which is really whatever, guys. A health nerf, which is nice, and a Infernum empowered AoE damage. So this is the ability that will one-shot an entire team. 100% on secondary targets to 75% secondary targets. So if you guys have seen all the Twitch clips of Aphelios one-shotting entire team comps and getting a full penta or a quadra kill just by using his ultimate, it's unlikely he'll be able to do that anymore unless he's just super far ahead. So I do like this change. Aphelios, look guys, honestly, when you play against Aphelios, it feels so weird. Even when you're playing Assassins, you'll just get one-shot by this champion, and they will have the same amount of gold as your AD carry, and you'll be very confused. So any type of nerf to Aphelios right now, I'm pretty welcome to. So it's unlikely he'll be able to one-shot your entire team unless he's just crazy far ahead with this nerf. So this nerf is very welcome. All right, so Aurelion Sol is getting nerfed. Honestly, the only people who play Aurelion Sol are Aurelion Sol one tricks. So base star damage. He was having a pretty high win percentage in solo queue based off of his win rate. But for your Aurelion Sol enthusiasts, this feels kind of bad, but for everybody else, kind of who cares? I don't think this champion will make his way into pro play, and the only people playing him before was Aurelion Sol one tricks. So it's unlikely this change even matters to a lot of people anyways. Okay, Azir. So with a Conqueror nerfed and the fact that he's had a low presence in pro play last year, we are currently cautiously optimistic in giving Azir some buffs. Okay, so Azir is giving some base damage buffs onto his ultimate, and the wall duration is up from 3 to 5 seconds. So this change of the wall duration is mainly going to be aimed at pro play, where you can utilize the CC and communicate with your team about the the pathing differences. If you cut off an entire path, is going to be more directed towards professional play. And this buff right here is going to be, I would imagine, this second rank. Look at this second rank. It is plus 75 damage. That might be pretty impactful for professional play. As far as solo queue play, the only people playing Azir are Azir one tricks or people who are very skilled at Azir. So if you're very skilled at Azir, you're Azir one trick, this buff is going to feel very nice. Other than that, this is mainly a buff aimed at pro play. Azir is already getting some slight play in pro play in scrims. So this will probably be enough to whenever the matchup is available, or whenever it makes sense within your team comp to have a scaling mid laner that can get priority early in the game based off the matchup, then Azir will make a little bit more sense now that this damage is buffed right here. Azir did have some bugs on him, probably was fixed. Since it's not addressed in the bug fixes on this patch, I would imagine it is fixed anyways. Okay, Corki. So Corki's getting a buff, so I know everybody's getting scared. We're going to be in the Corki Azir meta for pro play. I don't know if that is coming to fruition because there's only 10 damage at rank 11. No difference at rank 6, and then a difference at rank 16. So I think this will just take some time whether this comes into being. So Corki is a weird champion. So Corki becomes a strong champion when all other mid champions are weak. So for example, when no champion is hardcore in the meta, or maybe it's just one champion, like for example Akali. Akali is very strong in the meta in mid and top. She can flex in between each role. But in professional play, she'll get nerfed every single, or she'll get banned every single game, right? Or she'll be let through, and that opens up the gate for champions like Azir and Corki. Champions that when all other champions are bad, their base utility and scaling becomes valuable. So I don't know if this buff makes Corki go into the meta, but the meta does seem, a little bit ill-defined for pro play. So we'll have to see how it goes with the first couple patches, first couple weeks of pro play, and whether these buffs matter enough to make Corki back into the meta. And again, Corki is in the meta when other mid laners aren't strong. And when other mid laners aren't strong, then you can default to scaling mid laners like Corki and like Azir, especially Azir, a champion that can actually get priority in lane and scale super well into the late game. So these champions may be available in pro play. I would imagine seeing these buffs that teams are going to be looking at these champions because they can be so good for team compositions and just kind of organizing things together. Okay, so Jax's R will now work with Guinsoo's Rage Blade, so that's pretty cool. Other than you don't typically build this item on Jax, so I do think this will take some time to figure out if this is actually something that is very strong on Jax. Potentially could be very strong. So basically what the change is now the Guinsoo's Rage Blade, when it double applies, it may double apply on his ultimate or get his ult stacked up quicker so that he can apply his ult attack basically every other attack rather than every 3 attacks, which I don't know if it'll make this item meta. Jax is a weird champion since the absence of Spear of Sojin, which made Jax a strong champion. That item has been deleted, and so maybe the Rage Blade will be the next item that you actually build on that champion after your Trinity Force. Maybe not. It'll actually take some time. I'm really unsure about this change, actually. I don't think this change brings them into pro play, but as far as solo queue, maybe an option as a second or third item that might make this champion very strong. Definitely make this champion a very potent split pusher, very good in the 1v1, but I'm not sure how this actually impacts the meta overall. Actually, time will need to tell how strong this makes this champion with this Rage Blade change. All right, Jace's cannon. So the Shock Blast is upgraded. So the really important things is to look at max rank and third rank. So at third rank, it's plus 10 damage, which is pretty substantial. Jace has received a lot of nerfs last season because he was very strong in pro play, very relevant in bully matchups. Seemed very strong. But now he is plus 10 at 3 ranks. It's a very important rank to look at because you can get that pretty early and get that at level 4 and 5. And then we look at the max rank, which you'll be able to get at level 9, is 330 over 305. So that's 25 damage. This is probably mostly relevant for pro play. So this is pretty relevant. This max rank you get at level 9. That's when you actually start grouping your team, especially in pro play, and you start to actually poke people down. So maybe some more poke compositions will come into play with Jace rounding out the comp. But this will really be for Jace enthusiasts, people who are very strong on Jace. Think about people like the Shy, think about people like Rookie. And this change is very good for people who can utilize this champion correctly. And for Jace one-tricks, you can rejoice. Your champion just got buffed. And if you're one-trick, you can be playing this champion anyways. As far as solo queue, I don't think this change makes a huge change. But these damage values increasing does make it a little bit more nice for professional play who were, honestly, pro players were already trying to play like in the Kespa Cup and scrims leading up to that. We're already trying to play this champion anyway, so I think this buff will lead Jace players into opening the window for them to actually try to play them again. So I don't mind this change because it doesn't really affect solo queue that much, other than the Jace one tricks will just feel a little bit nicer. All right, Calista. So the Calista buff is really interesting. So we have her health growth from 89 to 100, and our armor growth from 3.5 to 4. If you cast your mind back, Caitlyn received a AD buff. She received an AD buff during the Xayah Kaisa meta, right? She received a 3 AD buff, and Kaisa received a 3 armor nerf. And so that was a direct response to try to make Caitlyn meta, or Caitlyn a counter pick to some of the easy lanes to survive lanes, such as Xayah and Kaisa. And as far as what it did at Worlds, didn't work. Xayah and Kaisa was just a meta the entire time. But when we got into preseason, Caitlyn was finally strong based off of those buffs and based off of some of the changes because she's so strong because she gets priority and dragons are very important, right? And so as a response, Calista is getting buffed with her armor growth, which is very interesting because Calista is someone who can get bullied by, let's say, Caitlyn, and Calista is typically a lane bully. But she has difficult getting range onto a champion like Caitlyn, who is super meta. So that's very interesting, this change right here. As the most powerful supports in the game right now are engaged supports, and who synergizes with Calista? Engaged supports like Leona, like Thresh, like like Rakan can be decent with her as well. So all the engaged supports are super strong, and Alistair just got buffed last patch, which is a good combo with Calista as well. I don't know if this brings her all the way into the meta, but as far as pro play goes, if Calista is strong, she is strong. So if this change makes her strong, you might be able to see her into pro play, especially with engaged supports being so strong right now. Calista may be in your pro play games. In solo queue, honestly, I don't think she's a difficult champion to play. But for whatever reason, she pretty much suffers in solo queue. She's very good in lane, and then has a weird trough in the mid game, and then does decently in the late game, depending on her items and what the team compositions are. But it's just kind of a weird pick in solo queue all the time. It requires coordination. If you have a bot and support duo, this champion is very strong in solo queue, especially with these buffs are going to be nice. But this looks like to be a pro play buff, and based off of what Riot said in their explanation right here, seems really like a pro play buff right here. Okay, Cassidy is doing a little bit too well in mid-tier levels of play. We're nerfing his roaming and escape potential to target the players that go unpunished in lane and have the ability to be all over the place. Okay, so let's talk about this because this is a really weird change. This is just a display thing, so this is whatever. Don't worry about this R Riftwalk thing. Main thing to look at is the movement speed nerf. So it's a 5 movement speed nerf. Let's talk about that. When is Cassidy strong? He's strong at level 11 and level 16. Level 16 is when he is a complete nuisance to the game. At level 16, do you even notice his movement speed? He ults every 1.5 seconds at level 16. I don't know how this changes anything, by the way. I mean, pre-6, you just farm. You throw your Q out whenever the enemy gets near and tries to trade with you, and then you just auto-attack the wave. I don't know how this changes early game. And then mid-tier levels of play, when you're level 11, your ult cooldown is like 3.5 to 4 seconds. I really don't know how this 5 movement speed. It's kind of like the Aurelia nerf. You know, when people were trolling the Aurelia nerf, you know, it says we give her the Aurelia treatment. When people were, because Aurelia doesn't need movement speed. She Qs through minions. Same thing with Cassidy. His movement speed isn't important to his kit. I don't know if Cassidy needs any more nerfs. You know, he's been doing pretty solid in solo queue. That's because you just scale on the champion, you get to late game, and then, okay, I'm a monster. So this doesn't change anything. You scale and you get to late game, and you're a monster. It doesn't matter. In pro play, he's still difficult to play because he doesn't get lane priority, which is super important for mid jungle and to make plays around the map, plays around neutrals, which neutrals are very important. So I don't know if this change does anything. I don't think this champion is going to get played in pro play. If he does, call me a liar. He might get played in pro play a little bit, but it's going to be a detriment to the team. Has very, very specific win conditions. If you're going to play this champion, you do lose priority mid lane really easily on this champion unless you have really easy matchups. So I don't think this changes anything. It's kind of a weird change. Debuff display. This is just a display change, so this is nothing important. This Mordekaiser change is also super weird. I'm welcome to Mordekaiser nerfs because Mordekaiser is very strong. It's very weird for a very simple champion like Mordekaiser to be present in pro play, and he's actually present in pro play right now, which very simple, straightforward champions, when they're present in pro play, means that they're very strong at solo queue. Mordekaiser is a terror in solo queue. He's good in 2 different lanes. He's very strong. He's very good into the melee matchups in the mid lane, which a lot of the matchups in the mid lane are melee right now. You think like Katarina, Akali, some, you know, people, Zed enthusiasts are always playing Zed, Talon, that type of stuff are being played. Mordekaiser does really well into melee matchups, so definitely needs a nerf. I don't think this nerf does anything, though. It says, for a Juggernaut, Mordekaiser is too hard to get away from and kite. That coupled with the synergy between Rylai's makes it difficult to escape from him. Look, so they reduced his duration, which you can renew by hitting your abilities again, right? And they reduced his movement speed from 369% to just 3% at all levels. I don't think this does anything. If you have Rylai's and Protobelt, if you hit your E, if you hit your grab, they're never getting away from you. You Protobelt to them, they slow, and then your passive slows them infinitely. I don't think this changes anything, by the way. I know what they're looking for, and I'm welcomed with Mordekaiser nerfs, but I don't think this does anything at all. I think it's a pretty useless change. I don't think it does anything. I don't think it addresses any of the issues of Mordekaiser. By the way, I don't know how to address the issues of Mordekaiser. He's a very straightforward champion. I think he's either strong or he's really weak. I'm okay with him being strong. But I don't think these actually address any issues. If you have Protobelt and Rylai's, which is the items you build on him, this doesn't change anything. You slow them with Protobelt and you get on top of them. If you land your E, they die. It stays the same. If you land your E, they die. So I don't understand. Cool. All right, Nami. So the Tide Collar is getting changed where it can power abilities rather than just basic attacks. So I'm thinking this is going to be very strong with some AP bot laners. Gives you a little bit more option. Think about something like Veigar. You can power his ultimate. So it is reduced on AoE abilities, but not on single target abilities. I was thinking about some other mages earlier, but I forget what I was thinking of. You know, Victor bot was popular for a while. You know, your Q empowered would be nice. So you can start to think about flexing it with other abilities. You know, like Zoe bottom lane. You know, I'm looking at UG2. So you can start to mess around with that. I don't know if this will be meta. I really think this would take teams actually going out on a limb and really testing this. If teams want to play Nami, I think it is playable, but I don't know if teams are going to do it. So I wouldn't be confident this is going to be played in pro play, but it may be able to be played. It'd be very interesting. God, there was a mage I was thinking about earlier that I was like, oh wow, this would be really good with this mage. Can't remember quite right now. A mage that has a lot of single target abilities. Maybe you can tell me, chat, after the video is done recording. Okay, Sejuani. I forgot she was getting a buff. Okay, she's getting a health growth buff. We're happy with Sejuani's identity as a scaling tank, so we're doubling down on it, buffing her scaling capabilities while leaving her early game vulnerabilities intact. Okay, so she gets 5 health growth. I don't know if that health growth is a difference to where she can build Warmog's second item or third item. So it used to be a thing where you could build Warmog's second item and third item, and it give you the Warmog's passive. But then they changed their health growth scaling where you couldn't do that anymore. I don't know if this changes it. I would really have to test this. I'm actually not sure. We'd have to actually test this. But the health growth is nice. Sejuani's been doing pretty weak, even when you have like people to combo with, like a Camille, like a Renekton, it still doesn't feel that well. Frost armor 10 puts so they just buffed the scaling for the late game armor. Okay, I'm down for that. Permafrost, the E damage, which is a big part of her damage in her kit. 20 at rank 3 and 40 at rank 5. That's pretty nice. So her late game is a little bit stronger, but her early game isn't much stronger. You don't max this. You max your W. So you won't feel this until like level 11, right? So you won't feel this until level 11. Yeah, so they're not buffing her early game at all. So Sejuani will still feel pretty weak early. I don't think this puts her into the meta in solo queue. But something interesting is, since you get so low level in the jungle now, late game, I really think a alternative style. So there's 2 styles that you can play in the jungle. You can play a really aggressive style where you shut down the enemy jungler and you make them get really low in levels and you counter jungle them and you destroy them. That is a very playable style. That's like the Graves style, Elise, that type of stuff. You make some shit happen, you shut them down. It's a very consistent style in solo queue and can be very consistent in pro play as well. If you know that you can outpath the enemy jungler, you can play aggressive, you have strong lanes, you can play against them. Alternatively, you can play a very supportive style. You can play something like Sejuani, something like Trundle, something like Zac, where you build support items and you build just for playing gold efficient. Because there's actually a lot more gold injected into the jungle, but XP has been taken out of the jungle. So if you build gold efficient items on supportive like junglers and an organized play, that can be strong. So I really think the Sejuani Zac Trundle meta can be a meta. I don't know if it will be the meta. It really just depends on what the pro players actually play. Because I think the aggressive style is also good. So if people are playing like Graves, Graves, stuff like that, Graves, Elise, stuff like that, Lee Sin, you can play that aggressive counter jungle style and set your enemy behind, but alternatively, you can, if people start to play the Sejuani, Zac, Trundle supportive style, that can become a meta as well. It really depends on what the pro players actually start to play. As far as solo queue goes, I think Sejuani is okay. She's really good if you have a duo. So if you have a duo that's playing like Camille top, then this can be very strong. Or like Aurelia, or Yasuo, or Renekton, then that can be very strong. But unless you have a duo, that champion feels so whack in solo queue. Shyvana is getting buffed, so she gains her passive from Elder Dragon now. I didn't know that she didn't. That's so weird that she didn't. And then her E will do a small additional more damage, and her E will do more damage onto monsters. So it's a little bit of a buff, makes her cooler a little bit faster. It's pretty nice. And then Cloud Dragon now increases her rate that she gets her ultimate, since her ultimate doesn't have a cooldown, and increases her Fury buildup if you get Cloud Drake. So it's just a small quality of life buff. I don't think this makes her in pro play. Maybe it does with some very niche play, but if you're a Shyvana enthusiast, this makes it pretty strong. I'm actually going to try out Shyvana on this patch. Shyvana is a very straightforward champion who can feel very strong. If you're low elo, if you guys are silver, stuff like that, this champion actually can feel pretty strong. If you are, Shyvana is one of those champions that has a very consistent play style. You farm till 6. You just farm as fast as you can. She farms just as fast as anybody else in the game, or faster. She kills dragons super easily. As long as you are keeping track of the enemy jungler, you can sneak dragons. You get level 6. You're very powerful. You have a lot of gold injected into Shyvana, a lot of XP injected into Shyvana. Can be a very strong champion, especially in solo queue. Especially in low elo and solo queue. The only issue with Shyvana is you do handicap your team, and especially if the enemy has like something like a Zen Zhao, something like a Lee Sin, something like a Elise, champions that can get some stuff early, or Shaco, then especially if you're in low elo, they'll not understand why you can't match their pressure if they're playing heavy gank style. So it can get kind of weird if you are playing Shyvana in low elo, but I do think that's where she's best, is in low elo, honestly. With these buffs, it's just kind of quality of life changes that are going to feel kind of nice on her. But it's a very consistent style if you just want to gain elo but not actually really improve much. You play a very brain dead style where you just farm to 6, steal the dragon, and then once you get 6, you start to gank lanes that have gank assist. Can feel pretty nice. Okay, Sylas. This is the big change. So Sylas has been difficult to stabilize for all brackets of players, and has been an extremely long record of changes since his release. Due to that, we promised that we'd do some bigger work on him outside of number tweaks that would help bring the gap between all levels of play of Sylas players closer. First, we're changing his early lane to be more in line with someone like Echo and Fizz, champions that have less control in the early laning phase, but get stronger with levels. Secondly, we're balancing him as a mid laner, prioritizing changes that encourage him to be used there instead of other lanes. And finally, by removing his EQ combo and slowing down his basic attack pattern, we're making his good faith effort to retain his auto-weaving burster playstyle while also making measures against the speed in which he bursts down his enemies. We'll be looking closely at him in the coming months to see how these changes have landed. Okay. I've kind of spoke, if you've been watching the stream. Guys, I don't know what they're doing with these changes. We're going to read them, and then I'm going to talk about them. Okay, so let's just read them first, and then we'll talk about them. Okay, so primary target attack, or target damage ratio. So this is his passive when it does the whipping around him, right? It does additional damage on his AP ratio, just slightly, just half of 1. The range is decreased, so that is in order so that you can't auto the melee minion in front if they're stacked 3 melees and then 3 mages are all stacked in a line like this. You can't auto the first melee and it hit the rangers. You have to actually go in between the minions to hit all of them. So it makes it to where it's a little bit less safe to just hit the entire wave. Also, it's harder to proc this in the jungle. I don't think Sylas is a jungler anymore. By the way, I didn't mention his growth stats. So essentially at level 3, these like his armor is reduced, but his growth stats essentially equal at level 3 what they did before, what they would equal normally. So it's just he's weaker at level 1, but he's fine. But at level 3, he's as strong as he would normally be at level 3. So he's just strong level 1. He's just weak level 1 through 3, which kind of already was. You kind of already farmed with your Q until level 3 anyways. So that changes kind of nothing. It just makes it harder to jungle, is what it is. So you can't really jungle on this champion anymore, I don't think. Unless the attack speed buff really means a lot, but I don't think it does. So now grants 60% attack speed. So now you can attack a lot quicker. Since they're changing your ability to actually combo correctly, they're just adding you be able to build up stacks and just attack really fast. So now you can stack up 3 stacks rather than just 2 stacks. So you can do your full, you can Q first and then EE, and you'll have all 3 of those stacks still stacked up, and then you can end with your W if you wanted to. Now it executes secondary target minions below 25 health. Oh, cool. I didn't see that the first time I read this through. So if you use your passive and there's a minion under 25 health, it'll execute them. Cool. That seems just nice. It doesn't seem like anything important. Okay, Chain Lash. The cooldown reduction is up 1 second. So it's up 1 second. The damage is decreased on the base value at all ranks. And the AP ratio is decreased. This is on the first part of your chain. On the detonation damage when it explodes at the end. It is increased substantially more than it's decreased here. And the ability ratio is increased pretty substantially. So the second part of the damage, you're going to be rewarded for enemies making mistakes by standing in the detonation range. So you'll be rewarded for enemies not escaping you. So enemies playing incorrectly, you'll be rewarded for that. Which seems kind of weird. Detonation minion damage, 45% to 60% reduction. So it'll be reduced even more. That's because the damage was increased more. So I think it's probably about the same. It no longer slows enemies for 2 seconds. So that sucks because that destroys you building it destroys Liandry's being so powerful. Liandry's was so good because after you hit the first part of your Q, it'll apply the Liandry's burn with slow damage applied. So that sucks right now. And you can no longer cast your Q during your abduct on your E. So if you didn't know that, Sylas, by the way, guys, is my favorite champion. So this is why I'm so passionate about this. This is why I know a lot about this. So you used to be able to E forward and then throw out your E, your stun, to chain them, to abduct them. And then while your E was going out, you could throw your chains on them. So if you knew you were going to hit your E, you could also hit that part of your combo. And then when you land, you whip, and you deal so much damage and execute with your W. It actually took a lot of skill to do. It had a lot of skill expression. It was actually pretty simple once you get used to using that champion. But you had to actually learn how to use a champion to be able to do that. So they're taking that skill expression out, and I hate it. Okay, and no longer now can you basic attack reset with Kingslayer. So you used to be able to, you would E forward, Q, or E forward, do your second part of the E, Q, and then you land, you whip your chains, you auto attack reset with your W, and then you whip your chains, and they're dead. That used to be the combo. But now you can't do that. You can't do any part of that combo. But they increased the damage. Let's see. They increased the AP ratio, and they reduced the cooldown, which is great. No longer deals 50% increased damage, so it no longer crits, but the base damage is increased. That's nice because you can lead with this ability. There's combos where you lead with this ability. But it heals more. Heals more, 100% more at 40% health, where it used to be 75% more at 40% health. The mana cost has increased a lot more, which, by the way, you used to max Kingslayer in lane against melee matchups. For example, like something like a Katarina. If you maxed Kingslayer in lane, you would win every single trade and you destroy that matchup. Alternatively, if you maxed Q in lane, she could dodge the Q and kill you. if you didn't max W. So if you want to play those matchups where you want to max Kingslayer, you're going to have to build Lost Chapter now, and build into Illudens, and maybe take Presence of Mind. So that this really does change the build quite a bit if you want to play this champion. Cool. Absong and Abduct. Casting Absong no longer resets Sylas' basic attack. Yes, you used to be able to auto attack reset, but that was really like less used. E2, the E2 damage is increased quite a bit. So you look at the base values. At 3rd rank, it is plus 80, which is insane. At max rank, it is plus, oh my god, 150. And then the ability ratio is up so much. So much damage has been added into your E. So it rewards players who can hit your E. Well, let me just say something about hitting your E. About hitting your E2. Here's something with that combo. Is if you E forward and then you W onto the enemy, you can hit confirm your E. So what I mean by that, if you E forward and then use W at the beginning of your combo, since W doesn't crit anymore, you can hit W at the beginning of the combo and you'll be on top of them, so you just point blank press your E. So it's like rewarding players for being able to hit your E, but it takes the auto attack reset out of W and the crit damage out of W. So basically it's just saying, if you're bad at Sylas, now you can Q to hit them with your Q, E forward, press W to get on top of them, and then or E forward, press W to get on top of them, and then you're already on top of them, so you just point blank press your E, and that's how your combo works now. I'm so unhappy with these changes, by the way, guys. It takes all the skill out of playing Sylas, makes it so easy, and it's like they're putting a lot of damage in the Sylas. So they're putting a lot of damage in the Sylas like he's an assassin. But they make him feel clunky, like he's a Juggernaut or a Bruiser or something like that. They take all the resets out of his champion and just makes it to where ability, you're dead. Auto attack. So it's like they balanced him to be a Bruiser and assassin, and it makes no sense to me. And they took all the skill expression out. It is so easy to hit your E2 if you W first, and you don't have to W late because there's no crit on the damage anymore, and the cooldown is reduced. And if you build Lost Chapter build, which it's incentivizing you to build Lost Chapter build, if you build Lost Chapter build, then you're gonna have 40% cooldown reduction. So this cooldown right here is gonna be 5 seconds. So you can W at the beginning of the combat, and then you can W at the end to replenish your health. It makes Sylas so much easier to play. I kind of hate it. I really hate it. So you no longer get a magic shield anymore because they're adding a bunch of damage. The cooldown is reduced on E, so it's like incentivizing the weird E max build if you can land your E, but if you just press W first, you hit confirm it, so it's so stupid. I actually didn't know this, that R hijack canceled your basic attack. I did not know that at all, but apparently it does, so now it doesn't anymore. Okay, we're going to be done talking about Sylas because Sylas pisses me off. The changes they made to him pisses me off. Okay, Piercing Arrow, the cooldown is reduced at all ranks, it looks like. Yeah, at all ranks. That's pretty nice. This is going to be really nice for pro play because he was already being played in pro play a little bit, especially in the Kespa Cup. Koreans love Varus, Tom Kench. So this is going to be nice for those guys. And as far as solo queue, this is going to be a little bit nice, especially for if you're duo queuing with your bot and support. This is going to feel very nice to make this champion actually feel a little bit more like a bully in the early game. You take the mana flow build, do that type of stuff. This might bring back the Poke Varus build because the cooldown is reduced. So I'm really excited to see if Poke Varus comes back and we have some siege comps. I love siege comps. I think they're fun. Okay, so now this is a change where Vi normally whenever she ults, while she's tethered to you, she's unstoppable. Now she'll be unstoppable whenever she is dunking you onto the ground. So now she's unstoppable in every part of her ultimate. It's pretty cool. The damage will just be increased on her E on the vines is basically what's happening. So if she has 2 plants laid down, the damage will increase. Whereas before, if she only had one or two, it's about the same damage because of the reduced damage and that they weren't stacking up 2 times. Now they'll stack up 2 times, so having 2 plants down when you throw down your E will do increased damage. That's going to be nice. Support items, so basically base health regen on all the tank support items and are going to be increased and on all the aggressive items, all the mana regen is going to be increased. This is incentivizing playing a little bit better in lane. I really don't understand this change, and they're taking some of the damage off of some of the items. I really don't understand these changes a whole lot. It's like they're taking damage out of support, which is fine, I guess, but they're making it where they can be on the map a little bit easier. I think support is really strong already. I don't know if it needs any changes, but if it needs changes, probably needs nerfs. Which these are like nerfs, but they're regen buffs, so it's like kind of incentivizing them to be in lane. But the changes they made last at the preseason patch kind of incentivizes them being out of lane. So it seems like Riot doesn't really know what they want to do with supports. Let's see what they have to say. We're following up on our big support item changes in 9.23, tailoring them so that their users are encouraged to do more in the early game in exchange for some combat stats. Tanky champions will be slightly more resilient, and ability casting champions will have more mana for ability. So they're incentivizing trading in the first part of the laning phase, but it really doesn't change what makes supports powerful. So supports are so strong after first back. After first back, they can instantly get Moby Boots and gank mid or top, which makes them so strong. These changes just incentivize making plays earlier in the game, which I'm fine with, but it just seems kind of weird. It just seems a little out of place. Conqueror is just getting the tooltip change, showing you the total healing, which is really total healing gained in the tooltip, including hovering over the rune on the scoreboard. That's cool, I guess. And then Omni Stone is getting a buff. This rune is so garbage. It's gonna take so forever for it to be good. Upcoming skins: Mecha Jax, Mecha Leona, Mecha Draven, Mecha Sett. Sett is kind of cool. The Garen skin's kind of cool. The Sylas skin's pretty cool. Farewell Sylas. So in synopsis, guys, support items getting changes. Kind of weird. Zyrex getting buffed. Vi quality of life change. Poke Vars is getting buffed. Sylas is easy to play now and seems strong, I would imagine, in mid lane after level 3. I hate this change. Shyvana is getting buffed, probably just a solo queue change. Sejuani is getting buffed, maybe a secret support tank jungle meta. Nami, maybe will open up the windows for more AP bottom laners, which will be interesting. Stuff like Victor, stuff like that. Some maybe Vigar. Mordekaiser getting nerfed, but doesn't really change anything. Quality of life for Kog'Maw. Casting and nerf means nothing. Calista, maybe she'll be in pro play meta, and if you're a Calista enthusiast, you have a duo. It can be a very strong pick. Jace for pro play will be strong for Jace players. Jax, I don't know what that change means. Corki and Azir, if mid lane champions prove to be not strong enough, then Azir and Corki will come back into the meta. Aurelion Sol, really just about Aurelion Sol one tricks. I always welcome Aphelios nerfs because that champion does too much damage. Maybe he doesn't one-shot your entire team anymore. And Sett is getting added to the game. All right, guys, that is going to be it for the patch notes rundown. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Bye-bye. Bye. Bye.